Dear students, welcome you all to Shirdi Sai Junior College English classes. Today's lesson is for class 12 students from State Board Academy. Here, the lesson is In Celebration of Being Alive. This lesson explains the secret of real life and the real joy. So before I start this lesson, let me tell you some important points about the writer Christian Bernard. So here, Christian Bernard was a South African heart surgeon who did the world's first human heart transplant operation successfully. He was born on 8th November 1922 in Beaufort West, Cape Province, South Africa. His father was a church pastor and his family was not rich. You know, one of his four brothers, Abraham, died of a heart problem. There was a great loss happened in his family when he was as a child. The boy was dead at the age of 5. Christian Bernard studied his matriculation in the Beaufort West High School. Later, he obtained his graduation on Bachelor of Medicine of Surgery from the University of Cape Town. You know, some of the writings which were written by Christian Bernard made him to be very popular in the world. Those were The First Life, which was published in the year 1969, and The Second Life, which was published in the year 1993. And the next he wrote The Donor, which was published in the year 1996. Later, he wrote 50 Ways to a Healthy Heart, that was written and published in the year 2001. All of these writings made him to be very popular and brought laurels to his name across the world. So with this you must understand, he was not only a great surgeon, he was also a great writer. Okay, and the lesson that we are going to discuss today is In Celebration of Being Alive, which was a real story that was written by Christian Bernard about the accident that he had faced along with his wife and the lesson that he had learned from two boys in his hospital. So these are the important points that are needed to be discussed at this time. So let us move to the lesson. More and more, as I near the end of my career as a heart surgeon, my thoughts have turned to the consideration of why people should suffer. Suffering seems so cruelly prevalent in the world today. Do you know that of the 125 million children born this year, 12 million are unlikely to reach the age of 1, and another 6 million will die before the age of 5, and of the rest, many will end up as mental or physical cripples. It speaks very clearly. Those were the days when his career has come to the end as a surgeon. During those days, some of the thoughts which are there in him turned him towards the consideration of the people and the miseries that they felt. Here, he started worrying about the miseries which were cruelly prevalent in the world, in the people's lives, especially in the children's life. Here, he has given some analysis. If 125 million children born that year, you must understand one thing, out of those 125 million children, which means 12.5 crores, 12 million children are nothing but 1.2 crores children are dying before reaching the age 1. And from the rest, 6 million children are dying before completing 5 years. Many of the children are dying as mental cripples and physical cripples. You must understand one thing here. He means to say that most of the children are highly affected and miseries are completely prevalent in their lives. That's what actually he started worrying about. Because he feels the children are actually innocent beings and these people cannot commit any mistakes, cannot do any mistakes. But still, sufferings are completely prevailed, so cruelly prevailed in their lives. Okay, before reaching the first stage only, some of the people are dying. Almost 12 million people are dying out of 125. So these are the analyses given by Christian Bernard. So let us move to the next paragraph. My gloomy thoughts probably stem from an accident I had few years ago. One minute I was crossing the street with my wife after a lovely meal together, and the next minute a car hit me and knocked me into my wife. So what happened here? He tries to describe an accident that was actually happened in his life, and the accident that he faced about was discussed here. So, and before he explaining about the accident that he faced, he started telling some of the gloomy thoughts that were there in him started getting from the accident that he met. Okay, so what happened here? One day after having a lovely meal with his wife, while they were crossing a road, here the Christian Bernard was hit by a car, and immediately he was knocked into his wife. Because of that, he and his wife had the severe injuries, and his wife fell into the another lane where she was struck by a car, and finally she had a badly fractured shoulder. That's what actually happened there. So after that, both of these were admitted into the hospital for some days. There, they felt really horrible and much painful. So let me continue reading from here. She was thrown into the other lane and struck by a car coming from the opposite direction. During the next few days in the hospital, I experienced not only agony and fear but also anger. So what happened here? Because of the accident, both of these were admitted into the hospital. So because of that, no, he felt not only pain, he also felt anger. He was also completely scared. There are reasons behind of getting his anger and as well as be scared. Christian Bernard had got 11 broken ribs. So because of that, no, his lungs were completely damaged by the ribs which were broken, and the shoulder had got completely fractured. The main reason for Christian Bernard behind getting his anger and as well as scare is, there are some patients, nothing but the children are eagerly awaiting for Christian Bernard's presence and to be operated on them. That is one. And the next one, his child was a young baby who is completely needed of her mother's care. So because of these two reasons, he was completely scared, thinking that what would happen to those children and his child, and he was also angered because of the accident that he met with them. If his father had been there with him, what his father would have told him? Definitely he would have told him that was the God's will, that sufferings ennobles man to make them to be very perfect, are strong upon the earth. So these are the words would have told by his father if he had been alive. That's what actually he imagined. Okay, but being a doctor, he sees children and the patients directly, and their sufferings are actually completely shown to the doctors directly. Okay, so from here, he speaks about the children and especially their sufferings and their conditions during the post-surgery. So let me continue reading from here. I see nothing noble in patients thrashing around in a sweat-soaked bed, mind clouded in agony. Nor can I see any nobility in the crying of a lonely child in a ward at night. So what has been said here? Here the patients, those who are suffering a lot during the post-surgery, are kept on the bed, hospital bed, during their surgery and post-surgeries for hours. And their mind was completely filled with the extreme pains and sufferings and as well as a kind of dizziness. Apart from having these, all of their sufferings are shown to the people directly. Looking at these patients and their sufferings, he felt there is nothing great and nothing valuable in patients' sufferings. And he can't even find any kind of nobility or great even in the crying of a lonely child when they were kept in the ward. Because during the night they continuously cry like anything. But whereas if his father had been alive, would have told him differently. But when it comes to the practical life, now he sees the patients in a different way, because here doctor sees the patients and their sufferings directly. Yeah, because of having seen all of these sufferings, patient sufferings directly, he can't accept his father's words. That's what actually he must understand. So let me move to the next paragraph. I had my first introduction to the suffering of children when I was a little boy. One day my father showed me a half-eaten Mauli biscuit with two tiny tooth marks in it. And he told me about my brother who had died several years earlier. Yeah, so what happened here? His father had shown him a Mauli biscuit. Mauli is nothing but a biscuit which was not in a good condition to eat. Okay, as it was the old biscuit and preserved by his father, so it has become completely old and it is not actually good or recommendable to eat. So, but finally, what happened here? His father had shown him a Mauli biscuit that was bitten by someone, nothing but his brother Abraham, that we spoke already about. So, what was identified on the biscuit? Two tiny tooth marks were identified on the biscuit. Okay, that is what actually had been shown to him by his father. And his father told him about his brother and the suffering that he had in his childhood days. His father started telling him how the boy was born and what was the problems and suffering that he had faced in his childhood days. So finally, what he conveyed, his father conveyed him that his brother was born with an abnormal heart and he had great sufferings in his life. Finally, he died of the heart problem. This what actually has been conveyed by his father to him. And here, problem could have been cured by any of the doctors because in those days there was no sophisticated surgeries. There were no advanced instrumentations or any other. Because of that, his brother was died. And the biscuit that was shown to him by his father was the last biscuit that was bitten by his brother. Because of that, there could be two tiny tooth marks are found on the biscuit. Let me continue from here. As a doctor, I have always found the suffering of children particularly heartbreaking, especially because of the total trust in doctors and nurses. So, being a doctor, he always finds the children and their sufferings. And something is heartbreaking to the doctors and the nurses. What is that? Because these children have a great trust on the doctors and as well as the nurses. That was completely heartbreaking to them. Much painful. Okay? They believe you are going to help them. If you can't, they accept their fate. They go through mutilating surgery. And afterwards, they don't complain. Yeah. Here, he spoke to himself. He felt all of those children believed you, doctor, because they have a great trust upon you. If you can't help them, so nothing can be done by them. Simply, they have to submit themselves. They have to accept their fate. So here, these children have a great trust on the doctors, thinking that the doctors only can help them and cure their problems. Doctors only can help them to come out of their problems and all. If these doctors cannot do, nothing can be done by the children except submitting themselves and accepting their fate. Yeah. And these children go through mutilating surgeries, nothing but there could be a lot of damage on the body by cutting and tearing off a part of it. So as these were operated on them by the doctors, a lot of damage is found on them. One morning, several years ago, I witnessed what I call the Grand Prix of Cape Town's Red Cross Children's Hospital. It opened my eyes to the fact that I was missing something in all my thinking about suffering. Something basic that was full of solace for me. Here the solace is nothing but comfort. So what happened here? Christian Bernard tries to say that was something that was happened in the hospital. So what was happened according to Christian Bernard? A Grand Prix. Here the Grand Prix is nothing but a series of car races. One of the series of car races. So that was held in the hospital which was called Red Cross Children's Hospital. What was the Grand Prix? How that was happened? That you must understand. So that Grand Prix made him to open his eyes and made him to realize the real meaning of actual life. Okay, that's what actually happened. So what happened in that hospital? So one morning, early in the morning, a breakfast trolley was left over there and it was completely unattended. So no one has taken care of it. It was completely left alone. Soon, what happened? two boys, two interpret crew is nothing but two brave children came forward and took the trolley into their hands. So both of these two boys played different roles. One of the boys played as the driver role and another boy played as a mechanic role. So the boy who has taken the mechanic role so had provided the motor power to the trolley. How did this happen? The boy started pushing the trolley forward. That's what actually happened. In such a way, the boy had provided the motor power to the trolley. Another boy had taken a driver role. So here, the second boy was sitting in the lower deck of the trolley by holding a rod with one hand and keeping his foot outside on the floor, and he by using his foot as a steering, he controlled the trolley. That's what actually happened. So here, the boy who has taken a mechanic role, started pushing the trolley, and the second boy who was sitting under the deck of the trolley controlled the trolley. So finally, they had a great Grand Prix over there in the hospital. Here, the scrapping is nothing but pushing with the foot on the floor. The main reasons behind of these boys to take those choices is one of those boys who had taken the mechanic role was completely a blind. As he was a blind, he couldn't take any other role except holding something and pushing forward. Okay, and the second boy had lost his arm. So with one arm, so he tried to hold the rod with one arm, and by using his foot as steering, he controlled the trolley when someone was pushing the trolley forward. That's what actually happened. So finally, that has become a great entertainment show. By the time all the patients who are there in the hospital started encouraging these two boys by clapping, by shouting, by judging, these two boys. Okay, and that was a great Grand Prix held by these two boys. In such a way, they put up a great show. Put up is nothing but held or performed. Okay, and such kind of Grand Prix that we can't even see even in the Indianapolis car race. So Indianapolis is nothing but a place where continuously such kind of car race used to be held. We can't even see such kind of car races or Grand Prix anywhere. So in such a way, he was inspired by those two boys, who Dr. Christian Bernard. So finally, what happened? Both of these two boys were caught up by the nurses and the staff, and they were put down on the bed. So before these boys were caught up, a great grand finale was happened in between the scattered place and as well as the silverware. So all of those were scattered and flown into the air like anything. So there was a great mess up happened. Okay, but everybody, those who are there, they enjoyed a lot at the sight of these two boys while they were performing this show. One of those two boys who had taken the role of mechanic was totally a blind. How did this happen? Okay, what made him to be completely blind? So one day when he was at the age of 7 years, while his father and mother were scolding each other and quarreling each other, his mother threw a lantern upon his father, and his father escaped from that. Unfortunately, that fell upon the boy's head, and the lantern completely broken upon the boy's head and as well as his shoulders. Because of that, the boy had got severe burnings. The boy had got third-degree burnings, and totally his face and as well as shoulders got completely third-degree burning. Because of that, he lost his eyes. And by the time of the Grand Prix, he provided motor power to the trolley. By the time he was looking her, with having a completely disfigured face. Disfigured is nothing but totally damaged. His face has got completely damaged. And also, there could be a long flap of skin which was hanged from the neck to the body was found. Because of all of these, he was completely king terror. Okay, while he was walking. That's what actually you must understand. Okay, so after all of those burnings were healed, because of getting third-degree burnings, his jaw has got completely gripped. Okay, so there couldn't be any movement. when it comes to the lower jaw. So in order to open his mouth, he needs to lift his head. So then only he can open his mouth. Otherwise he cannot. So in such a way, he had got a third-degree burning. Finally, he lost his eyes and he looked terror. So that's what actually happened in his life. So finally, what happened? Dr. Christian Bernard stopped him to see how the boy was. Okay, by laughing at him, he said that they won the match. That's what actually had been said by the boy. Let us move to the next paragraph. Here, he started talking about the trolley's driver, the second boy who was taken the role as driver. So, a few years earlier, what happened? This was the boy who admitted into the hospital. The boy was operated on him by the doctor, Christian Bernard. So, let me read. He had returned to the hospital because he had a malignant tumor of the bone. A few days before the race, his shoulder and arm were amputated. What is the reason behind of the boy to again come back to the hospital? Initially, when he was as a child, his heart hole was cured, okay, by the doctor Christian Bernard. Again, he has returned to the hospital because he kind of a malignant, nothing but a tumor was found on his arm. So because of that, in order to be operated, so he had again returned to the hospital. Few days before only, his arm and shoulder was completely amputated. Could be a little hope after having the great grandkids that the boy could be recovered very soon. So what was said by that boy here to the doctor? He said that the race was completed. So the only problem that was found by the doctor is the wheels of the trolley were not oiled properly, even though he has complete confidence in the mechanic. Let me move to the next paragraph. Suddenly I realized that these two children had given me a profound lesson in getting on with the business of living, because the business of living is joy in the real sense of the world, not just something for pleasure, amusement, recreation. The business of living is the celebration of being alive. So finally what happened here, both of these two children had given him and had taught him a great lesson. So what was that? A lesson was taught to him regarding the business of living. So he realized what could be the business of living. Here the business of living is nothing but a principal activity that is needed to be done for the livelihood. Majorly what should be done by the people in order to continue their life, that he has come to know by looking at those two boys. That's what actually you must understand. So when it comes to the real sense, what could be the business of living? That is nothing but only joy, happiness. So that is what actually should be there in everybody. The real joy should be there in everybody, can be found in everybody. Self-satisfaction should be there in everybody. Okay, that's what actually the real joy. Here the real joy is nothing but, it is not kind of an amusement or a kind of a pleasure. It is nothing but a self-satisfaction that should be found in everybody. Okay, that is what exactly the real joy. So he has come to know the principal work, the major work that has to be done by the people in order to continue their livelihood. That is what actually the business of living. So according to him, what is the business of living? Only the joy and self-satisfaction should be there in everybody. I hope you understood what I'm telling. Let me continue reading from here. I had been looking at suffering from the wrong end. You don't become a better person because you are suffering, but you become a better person because you have experienced suffering. So finally he realized that he has been looking at the sufferings from the wrong end. As long as he started looking at the sufferings from the wrong end, definitely he'll never become a better person. Finally what he says here, none of the sufferings makes anybody to feel to be the better person. But whenever a particular person feels that he is experienced sufferings, definitely he will learn a lot of things from those sufferings and he can be the better person upon the earth. That's what actually had been noticed. So finally what he says here, people must be in a position to learn from the experiences. Here the experiences, whatever the suffering that you had, from those sufferings you must learn something and you must treat them as experience. So then only you can be the better person upon the earth. That you must understand. I hope it is clear. So let me go through the next lines. We can't appreciate light if we haven't known darkness. Nor can we appreciate warmth if we have never suffered cold. These children showed me that it is not what you have lost that's important. What is important is what you have left. So what he says here, as long as the darkness is existed upon the earth, so definitely people can come to know the importance of the light. If there is no darkness, there won't be any value to light. So in such a way, people must face suffering. They must have some problems. Problems only makes the people better. That they must understand. In such a way, we can't even appreciate the warmth, the kind of warmth when there is no cold. Okay, so that also had been said by the narrator. So finally, what he says here, so whatever has been lost is not important, whatever has been left is important. So whatever is left with you, that is important. It is not that what you lost, that you must understand. So this is what the lesson in celebration of being alive. I hope you students understood this lesson. So if you feel any difficulty, once again go through this video and try to understand this lesson. Thank you very much. Have a good day.